Number 5 is Ashton Jeanty. We just talked about it, so it's good that we brought him up. And number 6, very interesting prospect that a lot of people have many thoughts about. Will Campbell, the offensive tackle, left tackle for LSU. Guys, Campbell is the one that they're saying might have to move into guard because his arms are about, I think they're 33. Is that right, Speedy?
Something like that. Yeah, they were saying that because of the way that his even just the upper muscle tone in his body it's going to be harder for him to be able to do against quicker edge rushers.
The thing is, you watch the film, and we'll watch in a second. He looks really quick in space, and that's usually what you worry about. And because he's such a fleet-footed player, they were able to get away with him in the SEC as a left tackle and be really effective at it. In the NFL, a team's going to have to decide, is this guy worth the top 10 pick? I wonder what you guys have to say about Will Campbell.
I want to ask Owen first. Owen, your thoughts to Will Campbell?
I mean, he's a top-rated lineman, and he played in the SEC against some of the top pass rushers. I mean, if he has to move to guard, I don't think they're going to take him early in the top 5 to 10 picks if he's going to move to guard. I think he's going to be a successful left tackle, right tackle. I think he did it against the best in the league, and he did it well. Obviously, his footwork, his mechanics, all of that stuff is there. And he's had short arms his whole life. It's not like it just happened at the draft. He had to do it all year with his shorter arms. So, and obviously they rated him number 1 for a reason.
I don't care. I don't care what his arm length is.
That's what I'm saying.
His hand strength
he's been doing
is.
it.
I mean, come on. Everybody's talking about, he's got to have big feet. He's got to have big hands. He's got to have long arms. If you're athletic and you're good at that position, which he's one of the best in the country, he played for LSU. He played for one of the more talented offensive teams in the country over the last 2 seasons. And look at the players that he's played around. And they're all been successful in the NFL. Why wouldn't Will Campbell be a good offensive tackle? I absolutely think he's a slam dunk tackle. It doesn't matter. If he moves to guard, it's a big mistake. And like you said, Owen, I'm going with the guy that guarantees me what he has done in 2 years. And he, 6'6", 319 pounds, 21 years old, and he's only going to get better playing in LSU with one of the best offensive minds in the country. I'm going in the top 5. Absolutely. I'd even draft him in the top 5 if I'm looking for a tackle.
Yeah, I've tended to be pro him too.
He was ranked in of the combine, everything.
Yes.
He was ranked number 2 overall.
Yes.
Yeah, and he tends to be still somebody that has enough of other athletic traits to make it work. Maybe he does have to bulk up in the arm area. Obviously, it's hard to have your arms grow longer, but at least to bulk up strength-wise to be able to fend off those first moves.
Didn't they say Olu Fashanu had the smallest hands in last year's
they were worried
class?
about him last year.
And look how good he was with the PFF. Stop it.
They were worried about, I think, Tristan Wirfs,
got
too.
small hands.
Tristan Wirfs, they were worried about a kind of the same. I forget if it was the arms exactly, but it was something with the upper
his
body.
arms aren't going to magically just grow.
No, I know that. I'm saying at least he can bulk up in that where he's still stronger and can fend off, I guess, maybe more
Just
of a power
don't cut your
rushing
fingernails,
first
right?
move. Well, yeah.
Damn him.
But I'm more on the positive side with him because of the technique element of it, where it's a great pick for the Patriots if they do trade back. It's a great pick for Jacksonville as a possibility because they could definitely use an offensive lineman. I think he still has the best well-rounded game of the 3 top offensive linemen that we were talking about, Fish. And even though that Mambu has the size, I think that's definitely a big advantage on his side. I think the all-around technique game still goes to Campbell slightly. It's just you got to see if he can bulk up in the arm areas because otherwise, you're right, Fish. Maybe he'll have trouble with those top-end pass rushers.
But you think about his athleticism. When a man is 6'6", almost 320 pounds and runs at sub 540, like the athleticism is there. You can't teach that. Like you can obviously do technique and you can do stuff like that. In the way where he can, use the things that he has. But physically it's there and his athleticism there. And Fish, you can speak on this more of seeing, guys that are bigger. And we talk about being in shape, like we were talking about earlier with basketball. Like, yeah, he's a big dude, but look at Vince Wilfork. Did anybody think, oh, that's an athlete? But the dude was a monster.
Look at Trent Williams. Look how big that monster is. And everybody said he was going to be too heavy in the league, and he was a first-round talent. And look at Trent Williams. He's been the best offensive tackle in the league since he came into the league.
That's why I always hate this argument of, like, people saying in shape. Like, what is in shape? Like, if they get production, I don't give a shit what you look like.
All right.
I also hate the
Oscars
argument
only.
of arm length.
So
Like-
I actually disagree with you, Owen. The arm length thing is the only concern that I would have with Will Campbell. He plays very high because he plays tackle, right? And he's in a 2-point stance as a tackle, and that's what they do intentionally. In most pass heavy offenses in the NFL, you see that a lot too. The 2-point stance. The guard's not going to be in that same high stance, so he's going to have to play with a little bit lower of a pad level than he's comfortable playing. That's going to be a change for him if he goes to guard. And the other thing that I worry about is just this arm length thing. They say that anything under 34 makes it really hard to be a successful tackle in the league because there's a golden rule about offense and defensive line. Whoever hits the other person first usually wins. And the idea is I can get to you first if my arms are longer than yours. And if I can get there first, now I have the upper hand in the battle in the trenches. So they generally want longer arms.
Have you seen that moving a guy from tackle to guard?
You see
yeah.
Well, that's what they're
Mekhi
doing to Evan Neal right now.
Mekhi Becton.
Mekhi Becton was a guy that couldn't do it in space. It wasn't because his arms weren't long. It's because he wasn't mobile in space.
That guy was
Campbell has the other
beast
problem.
of a man. I remember when
Evan Neal
Mekhi
can't
Becton.
move in space.
I don't think the arm length when he's been doing it his entire life. Like he's always been getting hit first. He's going to get up against some of the best pass rushers that have come out of the draft the last 2-3 years.
I'm not saying he can't do it. Remember we saw in the Super Bowl.
I just don't think it matters. If he can play, he can play.
I agree with
who
you.
was the all-pro guard that played tackle in the Super Bowl and got smoked by Josh Sweat. And the reason he got smoked is that Josh Sweat is just got that bend, and that if you have shorter arms, you can't get a hand on a guy doing that bend around the edge at the same ability. It's just it's something that's unfair, right? He's got all the talent in the world. He's got the best feet. He's got really good upper power angles. He has chest over knees over toes. You love everything that Will Campbell
shoulders,
does.
knees, and toes.
You love it. But in the NFL, I used to do this in Madden all the time. I would take a tackle back in the day when you used to make a franchise mode. You take a tackle and then put him at guard. And he goes from an 80 at tackle. He's a 95 guard. And I think this is what you see with Will Campbell. Could he be a good tackle? Yeah, he'd probably be a good tackle, but he might be the best guard in the league. And what do you do if that's what you have on your team? It's an interesting problem to have. I don't know how high you pick a guy like that.
I'm taking him
falling to 10.
I'm taking him in the top 5. He's got all the talent in the world. I don't care about. And by the way, what do these offensive tackles like to do? They hand fight in the trenches. So all he needs to do is the way he positions his body. It depends on where he's going. I'll tell you this right now. If I were Tennessee, I know they want this Ward. If you don't think Ward is going to be your quarterback of the future, I trade down and get somebody like Williams because I think Campbell, Will Campbell, because I think he would be perfect over there in Tennessee. They're looking for offensive linemen, and they need to rebuild that offensive line a lot sooner than later. This is not the offensive line. Remember in Tennessee, 5, 6, 7 years ago when they had
one of the best in the league.
Yeah, they had 3 all-pro players
they
on
had
that
2
line.
all-pro tackles, and they had I think a Pro Bowl center, which Ben Jones later almost went to the Jets. I think he signed elsewhere, or retired or something like that. But remember, they already drafted back-to-back years of offensive linemen too, and already had to move one of them to guard with Skaronski from the 2023 draft.
I think Tennessee would be the perfect fit for him over there, but Tennessee's going for Ward. It seems like he's the predominant number 1 pick. It doesn't seem like they're passing up on him, or unless somebody gives him some awkward, 3 first-round, 4 first-round draft picks to get him. I think Ward's going 1 no matter what.
I want to hope for that so they could trade Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
We talked about Ward while you were gone, Errol. He actually was 15th on this list.
Yeah.
Which is real fascinating.
Makes no sense.
Again, it's not a mock draft list. It's just a talented player list, right? And I've listened to different experts. A lot of people say that he would have been taken probably ahead of or right after J.J. McCarthy if he was taken in last year's draft.
They're
which
idiots.
Means he would be barely a top 10 pick.
They're idiots.
If he was taken last year.
I disagree.
So that's pretty much a universal thing from people that he wouldn't have been a top 10 pick.
Wherever he goes, I guarantee you're going to see him next year, and he's going to put up a game or 2 where you're going to be like, wow, that kid's special. And I think Cam Ward, guys, he's one of those guys you just fall in love with. If I were the Giants, I'd do anything to get him at 1, move up and get him. I think he's perfect for the Giants, perfect. But the Giants aren't getting him. He's going to Tennessee.
I got famous Jameis.
I think they're looking for Milrow on day 2, to be honest with you. But let's move on to 4 and 3 on the list. Let's get into the next page here. And guys, we have a couple of names that I don't think we've talked too much about them, but we should, because they're the 2 best defensive prospects in the draft. Unless you consider Travis Hunter to be defense only.
Yeah.
Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan, and Jalon Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia. Mason Graham obviously played next to Kenneth Grant, who's a bigger player. Graham is one of these guys you just love watching playing. If you watch Michigan, you enjoy their defense mostly because Mason Graham is just awesome. Like, this is a fun player to watch. He's one of the better defensive tackle prospects I've seen come out in a long, long time. He could play inside as a 1. He's probably best at a 3. I don't know if you're going to want to put him outside, but I bet you could in certain situations in a 3-4 as a 5 technique. This guy's got everything you want.
I'm not a big fan of him.
Really?
I'm
Why? 'Cause
not.
he's got a little bit of a belly?
Because I've heard that the Jets, I've heard that obviously Tyler Warren and Mason Graham are the 2 guys that the Jets really, really like. They've invited them like 2-3 times to the facility. They love them both. And even though Mason Graham would be a steal at number 7, I want Tyler Warren. And if the Jets pass up on Tyler Warren to bring in Mason Graham, I'm worried that it's not going to work with Quinn Williams. Quinn Williams, obviously, he draws 2 to 3 guys. And yes, everybody says, well, that'll make Mason Graham even better. But we've seen guys that the Jets have had over the last couple of seasons. I mean, they lost one of their best pass rushers early in the season, in the first game of the season. And then you had McDonald, who looks like he's going to be a pretty good pass rusher. I just don't know if you're going to draft him as high as he is, where we've been talking about so many good defensive players in this class. I like Jalon Walker. If I was a team right now in a top 5, I'm going after Walker. That's where I'm. If all these Georgia guys, all these Georgia Bulldogs, they're all stars. Every time they come out of the draft, they're superstars. And I think Jalon Walker not only is a good edge rusher, you can move him at a linebacker, outside linebacker. You can move him inside. He could do a lot of different things. He could stop the run. I think he's an all-around defensive guru. I think he's the best defensive player in this class, besides, obviously, Carter, who is, a superstar player. I think he's the second best player. So I like this guy, Jalon Walker. And if I'm going to bet on any one of these guys, I'm going to bet on a Georgia Bulldog.
Yeah, you look at a lot of these runs that we've seen with undersized defensive tackles getting drafted earlier in the draft, and I think it's become a lot more of a priority for these teams that rely on these interior rushes. And everyone's obviously going to try to find the next Aaron Donald, which is going to be second to none to do. That's going to be very hard because he's a legend. But again, when you look at a prototype with somebody like Mason Graham and the quickness that he has for his position, it's definitely probably as close as you're to get with the rest of the prospects that have come, even Quinn Williams and recently Derek Brown. We saw the 2 Clemson guys as well. I think you're seeing that kind of thing be a trend, and I think Mason Graham could be in many different impacts.
Who do you like more, Jalon Walker?
I like Graham more, personally. Jalon Walker is very good. I think Jalon Walker has a good versatility and quickness as well, that I think he definitely could grow into his body a little more at 243, but that I think is still going to be a athletic prospect that's going to be very good. But I think Graham is a unique prototype for a defensive tackle that I don't think teams should be taking lightly. Fish, I talked about this with you earlier. If Jacksonville is drafting at 5 and he falls to them, I would not pass up on him if I was Jacksonville. They need that very badly. And I think this is the best pass rushing defensive tackle prospect we've seen in a while.
Yeah, he's no slouch against the run, though, either, Speedy.
Yep.
He uses that speed and that hand-fighting ability to just shrug blockers, stop guys really dead on the line. This is a 3-down defensive lineman. If you're going to pick a guy this high up, he can't come off the field. He needs to see 90% of the snaps. And that's who he is. That's who he's been. He gets in a little bit. I mean, look, you could say he's not in the best shape. He could be in better shape.
That's what I'm worried about.
What if he is? But what if he is in better shape? We haven't seen him yet at that peak of his possible powers.
Could you imagine him come to New York out of shape? That's not a good sign. With the pizza,
Look, if you're
the food over here, forget about it. He's going to be a fat ass.
I know you want the tight end.
Yeah,
You
I want the
didn't
tight
want
end.
the tight end last year.
No.
And you realize you should have wanted him.
No, I want.
Because he's one of the best tight ends we've ever seen.
I think the Jets made the right decision for Olu Fashanu.
I disagree.
Well,
Aaron Rodgers would have been holding the trophy if he had Brock Bowers to throw to. Man,
get out of here. The Jets knew. Obviously, the Jets knew as an organization that the tackle position in this class is not as good as it was last year. So I think the Jets made the right decision for Olu Fashanu. And I think Tyler Warren. Here's my quote on this, and I think you guys might think I'm crazy. I think he's better than Brock Bowers. That's what I think. I think he's better than Brock Bowers.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think he's
that's
better.
crazy.
What?
I think that's crazy.
He blocks better than Brock Bowers, and I think he has better hands in the red zone. So that's what I think.
We'll see about that because he's definitely going to be a top 10 guy, it looks like. I just think the Jets, if you put him next to Quinnen, now you can't. Who do you double, right? Who do you double? And you have really fast outside guys. I really like McDonald coming off the edge when you have those two guys inside.
How about Johnson?
And Johnson, they just gave him a qualifying deal. I don't know when he'll be back with the Achilles, but I'm sure he'll be back at some point next year. He'll be back at some point. They have guys, and if they add this one piece, it could unlock everything for them. And I think that's more valuable than a tight end. I just don't like
a tight end that could block and do all the stuff that the Jets
first
need
round
him
tight
to
ends. You know, you can get a guy. You can get a Laporta in the second or third round, like the Lions did a couple of years ago.
Look who their quarterback is. Look who their quarterback is. He's going to run the ball. You have a guy that can block. He's been a quarterback. You can use him in so many different schemes to throw the ball like Penn State did. I think Tyler Warren is the perfect player for the New York Jets and what they're going to run next year.
So counterpoint, though, if my coach is a cornerback, what makes a cornerback look good? A pass rush, so they have to get rid of the ball fast so they can get more interceptions. So if it's my thinking, and I have a former all-time great cornerback as my head coach, get me the defensive line pressure so that we can dominate the ball and I can have a bunch of pick sixes, because that's what happens when you have pressure in the quarterback's face, turnovers, right? Mm-hmm. So I think if it's me, I take Mason Graham if I'm the Jets. I'd be dying to take him because I really think it unlocks that defense and brings you guys to another level because you already have a really good group. Get the middle linebacker somewhere in the second or third round.
I don't think the Jets had the third best defense in all of football last year. I don't think they need Mason. I think they need a guy that's going to be a weapon in so many ways than one. And I think when you have a quarterback that's going to be mobile and he's going to run the ball. And by the way, Breece Hall is going to be traded in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to get traded. Because they love the kid that they brought from Wisconsin, Allen. They love him, and they like this kid Davis too. So I think Breece Hall is going to be traded. I think the Jets could get a third-round draft pick for Breece Hall right now, and he would be a number one for a lot of different teams. So I could see the Jets doing it. Maybe if the Jets are lucky, they get a second-round draft pick for a guy like Breece Hall. So
Walker's awesome, by the way. Like Walker plays the edge against the run better than anyone in this draft. It's not close. This guy is just, you're not going to get outside on the outside zone or a sweep on this guy. He's too good. He'll play that wide nine.
He's so fast and like his instincts too. And super plug right here because we're a Georgia bar in Midtown Manhattan at American Whiskey. So if you're a Georgia fan listening to this, you can watch every Georgia game at American Whiskey in Midtown. But so I've become a pseudo Georgia fan just because they're great to us. But just like watching like instinctually the way that he reacts to plays, like you have the athletic ability, right? But then being able to see him on the edge, to be able to react, to drop into coverage, to do those things, it was really cool to see. And like I said, there's a lot of the Georgia guys that I get to watch just because, you know, they're so good to us. And I'll have to bring Goldberg on because obviously he played at Georgia. And it's instinctually like you can't teach some of those things. And you know that, Fish, as well as I do, but probably better as being a football coach. But there's just some things you can't teach people.
So I got a great story. My first year out of college, I ran a 5, 6, 7-year-old football division. And I took the youngest kid, so I had a bunch of 5-year-olds. And I had this one kid, he was probably 2.5 feet tall, but he loved football. And he ended up playing, I think, college football. But the kid stayed home on a double reverse and laid out an 8-year-old in the backfield. And I lost my mind. I picked the kid up. I was cheering with him all over the field. It was the best play until that point I've ever seen a little kid make. And there's no way to explain it other than some kids just get it. Ashton Jeanty, when he was writing that thing that we talked about, his article to the Players Tribune, he just said it was always like that when he was a kid, that he would go up against the older kids. I just make them look stupid no matter what. It didn't matter. And then when I went to camps, I made him look stupid. And then I became running back and people started noticing me, but they didn't notice me. But every time I went up against people, I made them look stupid. I want the guy that makes people look stupid out there. And Jalon Walker makes people look stupid out there. Jalon Walker is always right. His IQ on the defensive side is awesome. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets taken a lot higher than people realize.
Number 2 best defensive player in this class. Mark my words. This guy is the number 2, right behind Carter. He's the second best defensive player in his class. And wherever he goes.
NFL.com got him going number 9 to the Eagles.
Yeah,
oh
of course
my God.
The Eagles would get him, right?
Oh my God.
Right? No, I was shaking my head thinking the same thing.
The Eagles have the number 9 pick? Where did
No,
they get
they
that?
just assume they'll trade with the Saints.
I was about to say.
You know what I mean?
Could you imagine that Walker goes over there to the Eagles with that team?
They have the best general
Sick.
manager. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull something crazy like that off. Because Walker, if he falls, he's the steal of the draft. I could see why, maybe his size isn't as much as you'd want. Let the guy get in the gym, get added 10 more pounds, get into the NFL full time. Doesn't have to take college classes. It's different. I think it'd be real special.
Kid's a beast.
But let's do it. Let's talk about the last 2.
Yeah, okay.
We know who they are.
Oh, God,
what order do you think they are in this list, though? That's the big
Carter, 1. Travis Hunter, 15.
No, it's been pretty universal on most lists I saw.
Oh, there's the gremlin.
Travis Hunter is the number 1 player this year.
They're out of their minds.
So, just a couple of things on the 2 of them. Abdul Carter was not an edge rusher until this last season. He was an off-ball linebacker. And that might be why we didn't hear about as much about him until this season. But, oh, my God. His film it's just ridiculous. So we were talking about James Pierce Jr. a couple of weeks ago. His film was great from Tennessee coming off the edge. Now imagine if you could do that, but you also can rush from the inside. You can also rush from the linebacker position. You also drop into coverage, and you can do anything your defensive coach asks you to do in the front 7. Because then you're doing things like J.J. Watt used to do when he was at the top of his game. Then you're doing stuff Micah Parsons does right now. That's what we're talking about with Abdul Carter, a difference maker who you put wherever you want. You don't give him a position. You create the defense around him. That's how good he is. And Travis Hunter, Errol, I'll let you go on him.
No, he's the gremlin look like. I've said that. If there's anybody that could star in that movie and put a gremlin face on his body, that would be him. Listen, he's talented. He's a two-way player. I know everybody says he's special and he's probably the most talented player in his class. I still have to see it on an NFL football field. He goes out there and says he's two-dimensional. He's a two-dimensional player. He can play wide receiver. He can play wide receiver 60-some-odd% of the time and play corner 70% of the time. He's on drugs if he can think he could do that in the NFL. At the highest pace game, at the speed of the game, this is different. This is not college football when you're playing against subpar players. You weren't even playing the SEC. You weren't playing in the top divisions of college football. And again, I know you're Deion Sanders' guy, his son or stepson. You got to do it on a football field. I just don't know if his personality. And by the way, dancing and prancing with his girlfriend on TikTok and going to hang out with the Savannah Bananas is not what I call athletic ability. You got to go out there and put it up every single Sunday. And I don't know if he can. I don't like him. I don't like his personality. I think he's as smart as he thinks he is as a player. He's the dumbest person when it comes to interviews. So every time he opens his mouth, he gets himself into trouble. And good luck, Giant fans, if he goes to New York. Because if he goes to New York, you got to deal with this selfish ass, as we've seen Odell Beckham here. We've seen all these selfish players over the last couple of, last 10 years. And when you had Saquon Barkley here, who's a non-selfish player who wanted to be a Giant, you decide to let him go to the Philadelphia Eagles to break records and win championships. That's what I think the Giants are going to do. They're going to take this idiot, and you're going to have to deal with Gremlins 3 all 10, 12 years of it. So good luck on that. Worst
Errol.
mistake.
Errol, explain this math to me. You're a mid-level corner and you're a mid-level receiver, and all of a sudden you're the best player in the draft.
I agree with you.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't.
Like you're not even the best receiver out of the class. You're not the best corner out of the class, but all of a sudden you're the best player in the class. That just doesn't add up to me.
I tell you what.
He's
Before
gonna be
I cut you
overrated.
off, he's the ugliest player in this class.
Hey,
the ugliest.
Maybe that's why.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure there'll be some competition for that. We'll watch the draft.
I don't know,
for the
man.
ugliest
I mean,
guys.
he looks like a gremlin. Where's that picture? You had that picture. Why don't you
hold
post up that picture? It's perfect. Is that you got it up? No, that's not it right there. We got to get that picture up there so our guest Josh Benjamin can see what I'm talking about when it comes to a gremlin lookalike.
I was just hoping that the Giants draft Travis Hunter so they trade up for
I'll look
Shador
for that.
some other time in the draft.
The guy makes me sick to my stomach. He's a nasty piece of garbage, and I don't care what Deion Sanders says. If he thinks that this guy is going to change any team that he goes to in an organization, like you said, Owen, he's a mid-level player. I don't understand it. But guess what? If the Giants pick him, I'll be happy because I don't have to worry about the Jets picking that idiot because the Jets don't want him. So they don't need him. They don't need
You can't
him.
call him a mid-level player. He won the Bolitnikoff Award for best receiver in college football.
Well, good for
on
him.
top of the Heisman Trophy.
Which he shouldn't have won. He wasn't the best. receiver.
all right. Say there are guys with more ability. Maybe there are a couple of
And he
guys.
shouldn't have
with
won the
better stats.
Heisman either.
No.
It's
And
good
I
for
agree,
both.
Jeanty should have won the Heisman. I agree. But to
It's
say that
rigged.
he was mid-level is a little bit of a
I'm just saying he's like a number 6 corner out of a normal draft. Like this is a down year for corners, and he's all right in this corner. And he's not a top tier receiver. Like if he was in next year's receiving class with all the Alabama guys and the Ohio State guys, he wouldn't even be drafted as a top 10 receiver.
I agree with you too. I think he's
Well,
overrated.
how
That's
about the fact
mid-level.
that you have to play him both ways if you take him, or he's going to retire?
He's a
what
Giant
I'm
fan,
saying.
Owen. He's a Giant fan. That's why he's making excuses because he knows where they're going. Joe Stupid Shane is going to draft him at 3. Good luck,
I think
Giant
the
typically-
Browns
fans.
will probably take him at 2, though.
Here's the thing about athletes that I've seen over the years. If he was truly like a game-breaking athlete like he says he is, I would have seen him on kick returns and punt returns. He never even did
Special
that.
teams
He
doesn't
just
matter
said-
anymore.
Well,
That-
I mean, he you know why he didn't do that. That's the time for him to get a break because he's playing offense and
Yes.
defense. That's why he didn't
I'm just
do it.
saying, like that's a game-breaking. Like
I think I wouldn't hold that against him. You got to get the
No,
guy off
I
the
wouldn't
field at
either.
some point, don't you? But look, this is what Joba. We talked about this with the great Otani Judge debate of 2024. Look, maybe he's the 5th best receiver and 4th best corner in this draft. But if he can do both and he only occupies one roster spot, doesn't that make him the most valuable player in this draft?
And that's why I was saying Jacksonville, I think, is a really good fit for them because they're a better team than their record showed last year, talent-wise. And they could definitely use a second corner to go alongside Campbell, who's a good number 1. And then next to Brian Thomas as the number 2 receiver. It takes a lot less pressure off of him.
Look, he's not going to be a full-time number 2 receiver getting 70% of snaps.
It's still better than
He'll
Gabe
get
Davis.
probably
so.
about half of the snaps. It'll be for a team that runs
Right.
lots of multiple wide receiver sets. He'll probably be on the field in crucial downs and crucial plays of the game, right? On defense, they'll take him off the field when they're in the middle of the field,
Right.
or if
Run
they
down
don't need
defense
him
situation,
for a matchup,
yeah.
matchup type of situation. You keep him on the field for 70% of snaps in general combined, 65% of snaps in general combined, and if he can do that, that makes him the most valuable player in the league.
Well, and Fish,
Technically-
you said it too, and it's like, Errol and I go back and forth about Otani and Judge. But I think, Owen brings up a great point in not saying, so if you're mid-level in what they say as far as numbers-wise, right? But you do it on both sides, that I think you're 100% right, where that puts you up into here. And that's kind of my argument that Errol and I have, where Judge's numbers are crazy, and I get that. But Travis, he's doing it on both sides, and he played over 84% of the snaps.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say, that's tough to do.
And look, I'm not going to say that he has to be a better athlete than Otani to do it or anything, but he is doing it at the same day, not on different days. Otani doesn't hit and pitch on the same day, right? So it's really amazing that he can do this, and he's going to try to do it. I think that's the story. The story is we have a guy who's going to try to play both ways and might be good enough to do it. I don't know if that's what I want over a pass rusher like Abdul Carter. I would rather have Abdul Carter every single time, Errol. Say he's as good as he says he is. I still would rather have Abdul Carter because Abdul Carter changes the complete game. That guy, if you can't get a guy to throw it to him, or if you can't stop the run, the corner's neutralized. And the wide receivers.
I'm going Abdul Carter. He's the best and most talented player in this class, the most athletic. You want to say Travis Hunter is a guy that can play two ways. He could also go two ways, too, if you know what I'm talking about. That's about it. And Giant fans, you might love it here in New York because you'll get to see that, too. So did Odell Beckham.
But my point too is, and we talked about this, and we'll wrap this up and get on to the next.
I had to do that, but
he has to understand two playbooks. He's got to understand two schemes, and like that's not just your athletic ability. That is like you intellectually taking the time to study and do all that stuff. Is he going to do that?
I would expect him to play more defense his first year because offensive playbooks are usually a bit more difficult to understand, and they'll pick their spots with offense and expand his playbook over time. But look, he's going to be an interesting player to watch no matter what happens. I just don't think I would pass up on a guy like Abdul Carter for him.
Everybody's going to tune in to either watch him fail or succeed. That's really what it is.
I think more failing.
That's part of his attraction. Right?
Yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, he's allegedly succeeded, but his teams have only ever gone 13-11.
Tamario! That's what I think. I think Tamario is just all I could say about the old great Travis Hunter. Speedy, shut the music off. I am just not excited about this guy coming into the NFL and opening his big mouth. And he is going to New York because the Giants are stupid enough to draft him and deal with his stupidity. So good luck to the Giants.
Dumber. They'll take him.
No, I think
Cleveland is dumber.
Well,
they are.
So you're hoping Carter will fall to the Giants. I hope for your sake he falls to the Giants. I don't think it's going to be possible. I think Carter's going to the Browns, and your man Travis Hunter's heading to the Giants.
Honestly, I'd be okay with
Shador
Travis
to the Browns.
As long as it's not Shador.
Hunter and Shador to the Browns.
Shador is not going to the Giants.
He's going to the Browns.
All right, stop with this. He's not going in the top 5.